Behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, where composure is a religion and scandal is managed with military precision, something unprecedented is happening. The royal family, an institution that has weathered wars, divorces, and death with stoic dignity, is furious. Not the polite, carefully worded disappointment they express through official statements, but genuine, uncontrolled rage. And the source of that fury has a name: Ghislaine Maxwell. The woman currently serving time in a federal prison just revealed secrets about Meghan Markle's past that the palace has spent years trying to bury. Secrets they thought were sealed forever in classified files and protected by layers of legal privilege. Secrets that, if fully exposed, don't just embarrass the monarchy, they threaten its very foundation. Because what Maxwell revealed isn't gossip, it's documentation. Names, dates, events, and connections that palace security discovered years ago but chose to hide rather than confront. And now, those secrets are spilling out from behind prison walls, and the royals are scrambling in ways they haven't since the days after Diana's death. The palace is furious because Maxwell didn't just talk about Meghan. She talked about the people who allowed Meghan into the family despite knowing her history, the advisors who buried reports, the security officials who classified findings, the senior royals who chose silence over truth. And in doing so, Maxwell has forced the monarchy into an impossible position. They can either admit they knew about Meghan's past and married her in any way, or they can claim ignorance and look incompetent. Neither option is acceptable, and that fury is about to explode in ways the public has never seen. The moment Maxwell's statements began circulating, palace phones started ringing. Not the usual calls from PR teams and lawyers, but emergency calls between senior royals, private secretaries, and advisors who understand exactly how devastating Maxwell's revelations could become. According to sources close to these conversations, the fury was immediate and intense. Prince William was reportedly livid, not at Maxwell, at the people who let this happen, at the advisors who assured him years ago that Meghan's background had been thoroughly vetted and cleared, at the security teams who told him there was nothing to worry about, at his own father, Charles, who pushed forward with the wedding despite warnings from intelligence officials. The betrayal William feels isn't just professional, it's personal. Because he'd asked direct questions before the wedding, he'd expressed concerns to his father and to palace security. He remembers sitting in meetings where he said outright that Meghan's rapid rise and unclear financial situation needed more investigation. He was told repeatedly that everything had been checked, that there were no red flags, that his concerns, while understandable, weren't supported by evidence. He was made to feel like he was being paranoid, like he was letting prejudice cloud his judgment, like he was the problem for asking uncomfortable questions. And he backed down, trusted the institution, believed the people whose job it was to protect the monarchy. Now Maxwell's words from prison are proving that every instinct William had was correct. The red flags were real, the concerns were justified, and the people who told him everything was fine were either lying or incompetent. That realization has William questioning everything about the palace's operations. If they lied about Meghan's vetting, what else have they lied about? What other threats has he been assured don't exist? What other decisions has he been kept in the dark about? The fury comes from realizing that the institution he's dedicated his life to preparing for isn't the well-oiled, all-knowing machine he thought it was. It's an operation run by people who make mistakes, hide failures, and prioritize avoiding difficult conversations over protecting the crown. William had seen the files. He knew what palace security had uncovered about Meghan's connections to Soho House, to Marcus Anderson, to people whose names appeared in documents tied to the Epstein network. He'd been told those concerns were handled, that everything was under control, that Meghan's past wouldn't become a problem. And now Maxwell, from prison, is systematically dismantling every assurance he was given. She's naming names, providing dates, describing events that match exactly what palace intelligence discovered but chose to classify. And William understands what this means. The institution he'll one day lead allowed someone with a documented history in circles connected to one of the worst scandals in modern history to marry into the family. Not because they didn't know, but because they chose to ignore what they knew. Sources say William's fury in those first meetings was unlike anything staff had witnessed. He reportedly demanded to know who approved the decision to proceed with the wedding, who signed off on sealing the files, who decided that love and public relations were more important than protecting the crown. And most devastatingly, he wanted to know what else Maxwell might reveal that he doesn't know about yet. Because if the palace lied to him about the extent of Meghan's connections, what else are they hiding? But William's fury pales compared to the rage reportedly coming from King Charles. For years, Charles defended Meghan publicly. He walked her down the aisle when her own father couldn't. He welcomed her into the family with open arms, despite private concerns raised by his security team. He ignored warnings from advisors who urged caution. And now Maxwell's revelations are making Charles look like either a fool who was manipulated or a coward who knew the truth and hid it anyway. Palace insiders say Charles is furious at himself for believing Meghan when she dismissed questions about her past as racism and media harassment, for trusting that Harry's judgment wasn't clouded by infatuation, for prioritizing family harmony over institutional protection. But he's even more furious at the people who advised him to move forward. Senior palace officials who assured him that Meghan's background check came back clean. Legal advisors who told him the classified files were just precautionary. PR strategists who convinced him that a diverse, modern royal wedding would strengthen the monarchy. All of them, according to sources, are now facing Charles's wrath as Maxwell's words from prison prove that every assurance they gave him was a lie. The files weren't precautionary, they were damning. The background check wasn't clean, it was deliberately incomplete. And the decision to proceed wasn't about modernizing the monarchy, it was about avoiding a scandal that would have made them look racist if they'd rejected Harry's American bride. Now Charles is facing the exact scandal they tried to avoid, only worse. Because instead of being accused of racism for thorough vetting, they're being accused of incompetence and cover-up for not vetting thoroughly enough. Maxwell has put Charles in an impossible position, and the king is reportedly making it clear to everyone involved that heads will roll for this disaster. The fury inside the palace isn't just about embarrassment. It's about the existential threat Maxwell's revelations pose to the institution itself. Because Maxwell didn't just reveal Meghan's past connections, she revealed the palace's cover-up. She described how royal security uncovered Meghan's presence at events tied to Epstein's network and chose to classify the findings rather than investigate further. She explained how financial records showing Meghan living far beyond her means were documented but never questioned. She detailed how requests from Virginia Roberts' legal team to call Meghan as a witness were quietly blocked with palace involvement. Every revelation Maxwell makes doesn't just damage Meghan, it damages the institution that protected her. And that's what has the palace in crisis mode. Because the public can forgive a lot. They forgave Charles for his affair with Camilla. They forgave Andrew for his terrible judgment, at least for a while. They even forgave the palace for its cold treatment of Diana, though grudgingly. But what they won't forgive is a cover-up that protected someone connected, even indirectly, to the Epstein network. That crosses a line the British public won't tolerate. And Maxwell knows it. Sources say she's been strategic about her revelations, dropping just enough information to force the palace into defensive positions, then waiting to see how they respond before dropping more. It's psychological warfare, and the palace, an institution built on control and careful messaging, is losing. They can't deny Maxwell's claims without risking her revealing more damaging details. They can't confirm them without admitting they knowingly brought someone with that history into the family. They're trapped. And their fury is the fury of people who realize they've lost control of a narrative they spent years carefully constructing. Maxwell has weaponized the very secrets the palace thought they'd buried. And there's no strategy, no PR campaign, no legal maneuver that can put that weapon back in the box. The rage within the palace has a very specific target beyond Meghan herself, Marcus Anderson, the man Maxwell described as Meghan's handler, the Soho House director who orchestrated Meghan's entry into elite circles. The person who, according to Maxwell, facilitated connections between Meghan and people the palace would never want associated with the royal family. What's driving the royals to fury is a detail Maxwell revealed that palace investigators missed. Anderson wasn't just Meghan's friend. He maintained contact with royal circles independently. He attended events where members of the extended royal family were present. He built relationships with people close to the palace. And according to Maxwell, all of this happened while he was simultaneously managing Meghan's rise through networks connected to Markle, to Soho House's questionable benefactors, and to circles that overlapped with Epstein's world. The palace is now investigating whether Anderson was deliberately placed to create pathways into royal circles, whether his role went beyond helping Meghan and extended to gathering intelligence for people who wanted access to the monarchy, whether every introduction he made, every event he arranged, was part of a larger operation to position someone inside the royal family. This investigation is being conducted with a level of paranoia and thoroughness that palace security hasn't employed since the days after Diana's death. They're going back through everything Anderson's history, where he came from, who hired him at Soho House, who mentored him, who gave him his first big promotions. They're mapping his entire network, every person he's ever been photographed with, every event he's attended, every connection he's made in London, New York, Los Angeles, and beyond. And what they're discovering is chilling. Anderson's rise at Soho House wasn't just professional competence. He was fast-tracked, given opportunities that more experienced candidates were passed over for, promoted to positions that gave him unprecedented access to celebrity and political circles. And throughout his rise, he maintained relationships with people whose names keep appearing in files the palace wishes didn't exist. Ron Burkle, the billionaire with Epstein connections. Various financiers whose wealth comes from industries that don't stand up to close scrutiny. Entertainment industry figures who've been accused of misconduct but never prosecuted. Political donors whose interests in royal access raise uncomfortable questions. Anderson wasn't just networking, he was building an operation. And Meghan, according to what investigators are now piecing together, was his crowning achievement. The actress he identified, cultivated, positioned, and successfully placed inside the most protected family in Britain. Palace security is furious with themselves for not seeing the pattern sooner, for treating each Anderson connection as isolated rather than part of a coordinated strategy, for assuming that because he was charming and helpful, he must be harmless. They missed it, and now they're racing to figure out how deep the operation ran and whether it's still active. Palace security is reportedly furious with themselves for not seeing it sooner, for treating Anderson as just another celebrity friend instead of investigating his connections more thoroughly, for accepting his proximity to royal events without questioning his motives. Maxwell's revelations have forced them to go back through years of records, guest lists, and photographs to map exactly how deep Anderson's access to royal circles ran. And what they're finding, according to insiders, is making them even more furious. Because Anderson wasn't just at Meghan's events, he was at royal events that had nothing to do with her, building relationships, creating connections, positioning himself as someone useful to know, all while, according to Maxwell, working for a network of benefactors whose interests in the royal family were anything but innocent. If the palace is furious about the past, they're terrified about the future. Because Maxwell has made it clear, she's not done talking. She's hinted at more revelations, more names, more events, more connections that the palace doesn't want exposed. And the royals are in full panic mode, trying to figure out what else she knows. Emergency meetings have been convened with lawyers, PR teams, and crisis management specialists, not to figure out how to deny Maxwell's claims, but to prepare for whatever she reveals next. Because every assumption they've made about controlling this narrative has been wrong. They assumed sealing files would keep secrets safe. Maxwell revealed them anyway. They assumed Meghan would stay quiet to protect her own interests, but Maxwell's revelations are forcing Meghan's hand. They assumed the Epstein scandal was behind them once Andrew settled his lawsuit, but Maxwell is dragging them back into it through Meghan's connections. The palace is furious because they're realizing they have no moves left. If they investigate Meghan publicly, they confirm Maxwell's claims and open themselves to accusations of knowingly bringing her into the family. If they do nothing, they look weak and complicit. If they strip Meghan of her title, she might retaliate by revealing even more damaging information about what she knows. Every option leads to more scandal, more publicity, more damage to an institution that's supposed to be above this kind of mess. And Maxwell, from prison, is watching it all unfold with what sources describe as calculated satisfaction. She's not doing this for revenge. She's doing it because she can, because she has nothing left to lose, and because exposing the palace's hypocrisy and cover-up is the one form of power she still holds. The royals are furious, but they're also helpless, and that combination is driving decisions that insiders say could tear the family apart. The fury has created fractures within the royal family that might never heal. William and Charles are reportedly barely speaking. William is furious that Charles moved forward with the wedding despite warnings. Charles is furious that William is blaming him for a decision that involved dozens of advisors. Harry is caught in the middle, reportedly devastated and angry at everyone. At Maxwell for talking, at the palace for keeping secrets from him, at Meghan for not being fully honest about her past, at himself for not asking harder questions before proposing. But Harry's position is more complicated than anger. He's being forced to confront possibilities he spent years denying. That the woman he loves might not have been completely honest about her past. That the circles she moved through before they met were darker than she admitted. That her connections to people like Marcus Anderson weren't just friendship, but something more calculated. The palace, according to sources, has offered Harry access to the classified files, the full security reports, the photographs, the financial analysis, everything they discovered about Meghan that they sealed away. William has pushed for this. He wants Harry to see what the family saw, to understand why there was hesitation, to recognize that their concerns weren't racism or snobbery, but legitimate warnings based on documented evidence. But Harry is reportedly refusing to look, not because he doesn't want to know the truth, but because he's terrified of what he might find. There's a part of him that knows if he reads those files, if he sees the evidence the palace gathered, he won't be able to unsee it. His marriage, already strained by years of public scrutiny and geographical distance from the family, might not survive the truth. So he's chosen willful ignorance, refusing to engage with what Maxwell revealed, refusing to read what palace security documented, telling himself that everyone is lying, that this is all manipulation designed to destroy Meghan and control him. And that refusal is infuriating William even more, because he sees his brother choosing delusion over reality, choosing a woman who may have manipulated him over the family that's trying to protect him, choosing to stay blind rather than confront uncomfortable truths. The fracture between the brothers isn't just about Meghan. It's about Harry's refusal to even consider that he might have been wrong, and that stubbornness is pushing them further apart every day. Sources say Harry has been frozen out of family conversations about Maxwell's revelations, not because they don't care about him, but because they don't trust that whatever they tell him won't make its way back to Meghan. And that lack of trust is infuriating Harry, who feels like he's being punished for falling in love with the wrong person. The extended family is taking sides. Some believe the palace should have been more thorough before the wedding and deserve the current crisis. Others believe Harry should have been more careful about who he married and brought this on himself. Family dinners have become tense, silent affairs where Maxwell's name hangs in the air like poison no one wants to acknowledge. The fury isn't just at Meghan or Maxwell, it's at each other. For the choices made, the warnings ignored, the truth buried, and it's tearing apart relationships that were already fragile. William and Harry's rift, which seemed like it might heal with time, is now deeper than ever. Because William sees Meghan as a threat to everything he'll inherit, and Harry sees his family as people who never gave his wife a fair chance. Neither is entirely wrong. Neither is entirely right, but the fury between them makes resolution impossible. The palace staff, the people who actually run the day-to-day operations of the monarchy, are perhaps the most quietly furious of all, because they saw this coming. Security officials flagged concerns about Meghan's background during the initial vetting. They were told to classify their findings and stop investigating. Legal advisors raised questions about her financial history. They were told those concerns were handled at higher levels. Communication staff warned that Meghan's past associations, if they ever surfaced, would create exactly the kind of crisis they're now facing. They were told to focus on positive messaging and not worry about what-ifs. Every person who tried to do their job properly was shut down by senior officials who prioritized the wedding over due diligence. And now those same staff members are being asked to clean up a mess they predicted years ago. They're furious at being proven right, furious at watching senior royals panic over revelations they could have prevented, furious at being expected to fix a problem they were explicitly told not to worry about. Some are quietly looking for new positions. Others are documenting everything, building paper trails that prove they raised concerns and were overruled. Because when this scandal fully explodes, when Maxwell reveals whatever else she's holding back, when Meghan's full story becomes public, there's going to be a reckoning. And palace staff want to make absolutely certain that the blame lands where it belongs, on the senior royals and advisors who chose convenience over caution, who chose public relations over protection, who chose to bury truth rather than confront it. The staff are furious, and they're done taking blame for decisions that were made far above their pay grade. Maxwell's revelations have created something unprecedented, a situation where the palace's traditional tools, control, secrecy, carefully managed messaging, don't work. Because Maxwell is beyond their reach. She's in prison. She has nothing to lose. Threats don't scare her, deals don't appeal to her, and publicity only gives her more power. The palace is furious because they're confronting an opponent they can't control, threaten, or negotiate with. Every move they make gets analyzed, criticized, and used against them. If they stay silent, they look guilty. If they deny Maxwell's claims, she reveals more details that prove she's telling the truth. If they try to discredit her, she points to documents and testimony that palace security itself generated. They're in a lose-lose situation. And for an institution built on maintaining appearances and controlling narratives, that's intolerable. What makes it worse is that Maxwell is revealing information the public has a right to know. The palace can't simply dismiss her as a convicted criminal whose word means nothing, because she's not making accusations. She's describing an ecosystem that multiple sources, including palace security reports, have confirmed existed. She's naming people palace investigators documented. She's describing events palace files reference. Her claims aren't wild conspiracy theories. They're corroborated by the palace's own classified records. And that's what has them truly furious, because they can't call her a liar without admitting their own files support her version of events. They're trapped in a scandal of their own making. And Maxwell, from prison, is holding the keys. The question that has the palace most furious isn't what Maxwell has already revealed. It's what she might reveal next. Because if she knows about Meghan's connections to Soho House, about Marcus Anderson's role, about the yacht parties and the financial benefactors, what else does she know? Does she know specific names of people who funded Meghan's lifestyle? Names the palace recognizes but hoped would never surface publicly? Does she know about events or meetings that involved members of the royal family? Details that would prove the palace knew more than they've admitted? Does she have information about ongoing connections between Meghan and people from her past? Evidence that the palace's worst fears about her loyalties are justified? Every possibility terrifies them, because Maxwell has proven she's willing to talk. She's demonstrated she has information that's accurate enough to be verified, and she's shown she understands exactly how to maximize damage by releasing information strategically. The palace is operating in crisis mode, preparing for worst-case scenarios they don't even want to imagine. Scenario planning sessions that start with the question, what's the most devastating thing Maxwell could reveal next, and how do we respond if she does? Some scenarios involve Meghan's past, some involve the palace's cover-up, some involve both. All of them end with massive institutional damage that could take decades to repair. The fury comes from knowing that all of this could have been avoided if they'd been thorough during the vetting process, if they'd asked harder questions, if they'd put protection of the institution above avoiding accusations of racism, if they'd been honest with Harry about what they'd found. Every decision point where they chose the easier path over the right path is now coming back to haunt them. And Maxwell's revelations are forcing them to confront the consequences of choices they made years ago, choices that seemed reasonable at the time, choices that prioritized family harmony and public perception, choices that are now destroying both. The palace's fury has reached a breaking point, and that fury is driving decisions that would have been unthinkable months ago. There are reportedly serious discussions happening about stripping Meghan and Harry of all titles, not as punishment, but as protection. Because as long as Meghan holds the Duchess title, everything Maxwell reveals about her past reflects on the institution. Every connection she had, every event she attended, every person who funded her wies, all of it becomes the monarchy's problem. But if they remove her titles, they create distance. They send a message that whatever Meghan did, whoever she was connected to, she's no longer part of the royal family. The institution is protected. Some advisors are pushing for this aggressively. Others warn it'll look like the palace is confirming Maxwell's allegations, that it'll be seen as an admission that Meghan's past is exactly as damaging as Maxwell claims. Either way, the fact that these conversations are happening at the highest levels shows just how furious and desperate the palace has become. They're willing to consider options that would have been dismissed as too extreme just weeks ago. They're preparing for a level of scandal that they never thought they'd face. And they're doing it all while knowing that whatever they decide, Maxwell might reveal something that makes their decision look foolish or insufficient. The fury isn't just about the present crisis. It's about the loss of control, the loss of certainty, the loss of the carefully constructed image of a monarchy that knows what it's doing. Maxwell has exposed them, not just as people who made bad decisions, but as an institution that prioritizes image over truth. And that exposure is what has them truly furious. Because once trust is broken, once the public sees behind the curtain and realizes the palace isn't the all-knowing, all-controlled entity it pretends to be, that perception never fully recovers. The royals are furious because Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted criminal sitting in a prison cell, has done what decades of tabloids, scandals, and critics couldn't do. She's revealed that the emperor has no clothes, that the palace's legendary control is an illusion, that their vetting is incomplete, their judgment is flawed, their cover-ups are sloppy, and their fury, all that rage at Maxwell, at Meghan, at advisors, at each other, it won't change any of that. The secrets are out, the damage is done, and no amount of furious palace meetings, emergency crisis planning, or royal rage will put the truth back where they buried it. Maxwell made sure of that. And the royals, for all their fury and privilege and institutional power, are completely powerless to stop what's coming next.